every action, even a non-action, is creating something. It's just creating more non-action, right? So everything is creation. Easy does not mean without effort, right? Effortless is aligned effort. So this is all about how to stop using force and start using real power. I want to help you really recognize the difference between ego, which is all about force, right? And real power, which is all about allowing. It's not tolerating. So we're going to dive deeper so you can really understand it. But to begin with, Lao Tzu said, mastering others is strength, but mastering yourself is true power. So in diving deeper, where does real power come from? I used to always wonder, like, how do you really find that? Everybody says power, like access your power. Well, where is it, right? It's actually energetic, right? I just want you to feel that. And I'm going to give you the practical way of not only accessing it, but how to move yourself inside of that energy. So where does real power come from? It comes from your ability to shift and operate at higher states of consciousness. So what do I mean by that? Like, really feel that, like, the ego and shame is at the lowest form energetically. It is the lowest form of consciousness, not right, wrong, not bad, good, not morality, but it is the lowest form energetically. And so you're going to start to feel what this actually feels like when you're in shame, guilt, how that feels, and energetically what that feels like versus love, joy, acknowledgement, enlightenment, right? Feeling like whole, perfect, complete, right? Inside of that, like these different places to operate from when we're in our ego and protective self versus when we are in our aligned self. Aligned self feels all out here, right? Like there's this connection to everything and everyone. The ego always feels small, alone, tight, constricted, restricted, right? It always feels disappointing, anxiety, regret, despair, anything that's small, contracting, where the aligned self is always open and growth and expansive and evolving, right? Can be in any situation, any circumstance. So I'm going to show you my screen so you can start to see what this is and where we are and how we're going to really start to understand these different levels of energy. So here it is, right? So what we want to do is develop the ability to consciously and emotionally move ourselves up the vibrational scale. And so that way we know how to move ourselves. And when we can move ourselves emotionally, right? Well, when we master our emotions, we master our life. So it just allows us to really self-trust, right? Then trust ourselves, trust others, trust life. So here's what I'm saying. So notice that inside of here. Now, this is based off of David R. Hawking's, where he studied power versus force, but it's my interpretation of it. So he didn't say this is the ego and this is our aligned self, right? This is where all of our potential is when we're in alignment. He didn't say that, but it is his vibrational chart. It does have different energetics and he's proven it. I'm just showing you where is the ego and where is the aligned self. So this is my interpretation of it. But notice shame is the bottom of it all, right? So this is when we feel humiliation, blame, despair, right? All of these self-criticisms, right? And so I want you to also notice that desire here, the reason he has this as down below is it's because it's his interpretation of desire. He's talking about when we're attached to things, right? So when we have an attachment of desire, right? Feel it. If I need this person to love me, then there's an attachment. That's why desire can be in ego, right? So all desire doesn't necessarily mean it's from the aligned self, right? Desire without the need in it, without an attachment, is in alignment. That is from the aligned self. So if there's any neediness, right, it's going to be out of alignment. So what I want you to most pay attention is, in order to work ourselves up the vibrational scale, we have to understand, where are we to where do we want to go, right? So what I love about creating this chart for you is to help you understand that most people, right? So if we're in shame, then guilt will feel better. It's a little bit of a relief. That is moving. When we're taking tiny steps and we want to move from feeling shame, the guilt feels a little more relief than shame does, right? Just like grief, when we're in grief, fear feels a little better than grief, okay? Which is why then when people feel angry, the worst thing that we can do is to not let them want to feel those emotions, because then they suppress it, and then they go back into shame and grief, and they circle here in depression, right? They go into hopelessness. So can you feel that from hopelessness, right? Anger is the way out. We just don't want to stay in anger, right? If we understood how to move ourselves out of an emotion we don't want to be in, it all of a sudden we start to gain power and momentum. So if you find yourself in anger, that is just, you want to acknowledge, what am I really angry about, and process that emotion so that you can then move to courage. Then you can have those hard conversations, or the conversations that you really want to have, but you're not going to do it from anger, because your energy then would trigger everyone. You want to move yourself first, come into alignment first, come back into alignment within yourself, and then have the conversations from your willingness, from your acceptance, from love, from joy, from peace, right? So this is why this is really important to understand, how to move ourselves up out of any negative emotion. That is what I want you to know more of. Okay. Inside of this is what's going to give you so much power, because I want you to consider that in life, everything is communication. Communication is creation. Communication isn't necessarily all verbal, right? Have you noticed from your original core trauma, it was nonverbal. So communication is always happening, even if it's not in the form of language, it's energetically first and foremost. So I want you to feel that, right? Communication is everything. So there's no such thing in this time, space, reality we live in this world, there is no such thing as an idle thought. Like every thought produces an energy equivalent or a feeling based on the meaning you gave that thought, which then creates a reaction, right? In energetically, like a ripple effect, right? From the universal law of cause and effect. So every action, even a non-action, is creating something. It's just creating more non-action. Right? So everything is creation. Like, I want you to really feel this. If you could imagine, like, all around me right now, even though we cannot see it with the physical eye, there is air. And just like there is air, there is energy everywhere. And so whatever I'm giving off energetically is going to impact this energy that's all around me, which is then going to impact the energy of whatever I come in contact with. So everything is an interconnectedness. Everything is really connected. There is no separation. The illusion, or the false self, or the protective self, believes there is. Okay, so I like to share a story really quick, back a few years ago. Inside of it is like, Michael's daughter had come home, from school sick. And so, being the loving father that he was, nurturing her, loving on her, right? And then all of a sudden I started, he's loving all over her. Then he comes and kisses me, and all of a sudden I start to feel sick, right? And I had this huge event that I was going to that I'm leading, right? And so as soon as I'm aware of this, I'm like going into blaming him in my head, and I start recognizing, wait a minute, I start taking back my responsibility. Okay, wait, this is my reality. I've created this. So I stopped, looked at what the truth was. What's the misconception? What is the lie? What is the misunderstanding, right? And on the truth, on the surface, is that I was the one that had told him, of course you can come, right? And so forth. So I had agreed to allow that. I also agreed, I was totally in on him loving on me. So what is the deeper truth? What was really there is that it had triggered my original core trauma, right? Where I had made a decision, in that original trauma of mine, that if in any way that if I feel like, oh, I'm not important, or he didn't see the importance of this for me, so I'm not important. Anytime I make something mean, I'm not important, then I felt immediately not loved, right? And so as soon as I was able to see that, I laughed at it, right? It's really freaking funny when you come out of the trap and see it, right? And I could immediately take my power back, shift back into the deliberate creator of who I am. And of course, I remember like embodying, I am the source of my creation. I am the source of my reality. I create everything. And so from that feeling state, I wanted, like, how did I want to feel instead? I was like, wow, I want to feel wellness and wholeness. And I want to lead as, really confident in my weekend. So I really started to deliberately create how I wanted that to go. And so I took some vitamin C, went to bed, totally trusting that this was all going to work itself out, woke up perfectly, feeling fine, healthy, ready to crush the weekend, which I did. And so I shared afterwards with Michael what had happened, because I had not shared any of that out loud. I processed it, and he had a great laugh. Now, of course, I still, played with him that he was ultimately to blame, because why not? It's so much fucking fun. So where are you? Where are you not having those conversations with yourself? So like, where are you still looking for, like, thinking something is happening outside of you? You want to pay more attention to the way you feel than how you think. I want to say that again. You want to get used to paying more attention. You got to care more attention to how you feel than what you think. Recognizing that how you feel isn't really based on anything that's happening outside of you, but it is your guidance system to let you know, hey, right now, in this moment, you are out of alignment from the truth that is really true, right? From the desire you really have. Anytime you feel negative emotion or resistance, it just means you're out of alignment from what you really, really want. You must pay attention to that. Instead of thinking that negative emotion means something is really wrong, or something is bad, or, you're right about something, right? You have to switch the meaning on that, because that was the old stuff is all the misunderstanding and misconceptions. So you want to check in. What are the hard conversations that you think are hard, that once you process from alignment are not hard, that can really be easy? Easy does not mean without effort. Right? Effortless is aligned effort. There's still action involved. But where can it be easy, and that you're making it hard or avoiding these conversations with yourself or with others because there's something that you still don't want to be with or process through? Where do you want to stay a victim to life, others, or your circumstances? Because everywhere you're not willing to face those emotions, you are creating that by default for everything not to go the way you want. You're literally creating the opposite of what you desire. Okay, you want to look lovingly because there's no blame, right? But you want to process it. So communication is creation. These are really the two in the same, right? They're like interconnected. So what are you communicating? I want you to think about this unconsciously and then consciously, but unconsciously, emotionally, energetically, non-verbally, right? These are the things that are running underneath, right? If you are holding a feeling from your core trauma, I'm a disappointment, right? Then unconsciously, you're literally creating and communicating. When you go into situations in your energy, you feel like a disappointment or like there's something wrong. And people then kind of respond to that because it rubs them wrong, because it triggers their own trauma of something they don't want to feel. Right. Versus feel that if you're running, that you're a gift to others, like being in their presence, just being really present and being with them and acknowledge them. There's so much power they're feeling. They feel so connected. They feel so seen, understood, heard, right? Really feel this. It's beautiful. It's liberating. You want to check in with yourself. What am I committed to communicating? Right? If communication is creation, what are the things that you value most? Like, what do you really care about? When it comes to your family, what is the biggest thing you really want to communicate? Like, what's the win-win? How do you want those interactions to go? If you can deliberately create your reality, and you can, right? You always are, whether you're choosing to consciously do it or not. If you consciously and deliberately did it, how do you want that to go? How much, how do you want people to feel in your presence energetically, right? What is that? What are your values in your business? How do you want to run an effective business, right? What do you value the most, right? Is integrity, doing what you say and saying what you mean, one of your values? Are you leading with that value, right? Like really showing up powerfully in ways that people feel seen and heard, that the machine is running effectively, that you're really putting in the people and the systems and processes in place to have the machine flow, right? Like that it's really starting to flow like freedom and ease, like a well-oiled machine, instead of like, right? Stop and go, stop and go, stop and go, right? We want to really check in that. Are you in alignment with your values? Are you committing? Are you communicating that? Are you committed to that? What are the decisions that you will need to make that are, have you really reflect the inside? The outside is reflecting the inside, right? How would you be feeling? What would you be prioritizing, right? What would you be doing differently? How can you create more of what you care about, expressing it based on what you're truly committed to energetically? What are your creations, that you're conveying to others? Like, what are they that you're committed to conveying? Like, what are those creations? Communications are creations. All right. So what do we convey reveals what we really feel. That's why you can't get away with it from thoughts, because people say a lot of things they don't really mean energetically. So that's the disconnect. And so when people can feel that, when what people say and what they feel or what they do are not in alignment, people, it instantly has us break that trust. We don't believe them. We don't trust them, right? So we've got to be able to rebuild that self-trust by the behaviors, and what people think, what people say, and how they feel and act need to be in alignment with what they say, right? So where are you? Check in. Where are you holding on to any kind of limitations, guilt, unworthiness, doubt? Right? And instead bring a childlike innocence and curiosity so that you can look and clear it, so you can bring yourself back into abundance, peace, joy, prosperity, right? These are the things you really want to take the time. How often are you living now from your aligned self? How much are you integrating? Like in the same situations where now, even if you still got triggered and it ran, the pattern ran this way from your trauma, how much are you coming back and cleaning that up, catching it as quick as possible when you feel out of alignment, taking a few minutes, put yourself back in alignment, going again, or replaying the same situation, but this time you're replaying it from your aligned self. How do you see it differently? What do you do differently? What are even before you go into the interaction, how are you setting it up for success? How are you getting clarity on Who are you being? What is the intention for this? Because whatever thoughts and you are focusing on, even if you're not deliberate about it, like if you're in worry and concern about how it's going to go, then that's the reason it goes that way. So you are always creating your reality. Do it on purpose instead of by default. All right. So when you go and trusting yourselves, really trusting that everything's working out, holding your intention energetically to create win-wins. Okay. So instead of using force, so why do we go into force, right? Anytime you're going to feel in your ego based on your original core trauma and your protective self, anytime you feel uncertain is when your ego is going to get triggered, right? Then you're going to want to force it. Or your way of forcing is by being passive aggressive, kind of like hiding and avoiding. That is still your form of control, right? So you want to check that in, not from right and wrong, but you want to clear any misunderstanding and misconceptions. So the key is understanding that any self-deprecating behavior, meaning anytime you are disapproving of yourself, judging, criticizing, you're attempting to regain a false sense of control by compensating, right? So you feel powerless and then you're compensating, and consider you're right back in your original core trauma trying to survive. That's your indication, the way you feel. Wait a minute, stop. You have to be willing to interrupt those patterns, pull up and out, right? When in doubt, pull up and out, look down on it and like, whoa, what's happening here? You've got to be able to interject it, right? Interrupt that patterning, because otherwise you're getting a benefit from running the pattern, right? You get to feel all alone or special, or you like to feel misunderstood because then you get to be different, right? Who here has like turned their core trauma in something that they're like, oh, see, this is why I'm different. And then you have it as like a strength. I know that was me. I still, like, if I go into a big room, that I'm not running, right? If I'm running it, I'm like, of course, everybody's here because we're all connected. But it's funny. If I go into a room where I'm not running it, I have to let go of, I'm different from these people. Because it's so funny when people have not done the course or the training and they're in their egos, my instant like reaction wants to be like, oh, here's all these egos, like I'm going to see it all, right? Instead, I have to embrace their egos and allow them to be exactly the way they are and exactly the way they aren't, instead of trying to isolate myself. So that is really interesting. Just wanted to share that. That's what happens because I'm not with those kind of people often. Like it's rare. But when it does, I have to like be deliberate about staying open and connected rather than walling myself up and wanting to be different or, than these people. Okay. So that's what I want you to consider, because there is superiority ego and then there's inferiority ego. Not one is right, not one's wrong, no morality, right? But when we're in superiority ego, right, that's when we're attacking, defending. Those are more of the people who are like aggressive. A lot of the experts that you can see can be driven from their superiority ego. So behind the scenes, they'll be shaming people because they're really aggressive. They're using force to lead with. Right? Inferiority ego can be where, and let me stop there for a second. Superiority ego can also look like better than, like I shouldn't need to explain this to you because like there's obviously something wrong with you. It can feel like that. Like I never feel that. That isn't mine, but I've felt people who feel this way. It's not right, wrong, but that's their defensive and force mode. So anytime we feel like somehow we shouldn't have to explain something, or somehow we're attacking, defending, anything like that is going to be inside of superiority ego, where it's like, or even this, I already know all this. That is superiority ego. Like, I already know this. I don't really need to be here. I don't really need to do this. I'm just doing this because, it's like good to do, right? Like it's the right thing to do, but I don't really need help. All these other people are really messed up. That's superiority ego, right? I wanted to say it because that's most often missed. Inferiority ego is more like, so that one is trying to be more than human, better than. Inferiority ego is that a person who is in their trauma or in their ego feeling less than human, right? They're always avoiding and pleasing. It doesn't mean we don't have both. Okay. I want to say that every single person has both sides of the ego. It's just that one side will be more predominant. Right? Like mine would be more predominantly inferiority ego, like based on my core trauma. And then I could peak into superiority ego once I had built my first $1 million company. It's like, I didn't realize it, but it kind of shifted a little bit to that. And I had to, like uncover all that. Or let's say, so I just want everybody to feel like you really have both. It's just one will be more predominant is what you want to notice. Okay. So anytime you don't think you're capable of being with a certain type of person, a situation, a circumstance, whatever it is, that's that goes into that fight, right? The fight mode is the attacking, defending, trying to be more than human, right? That's that superiority ego I was talking about. Demanding, antagonistic, anger, hate, scornfulness, stubbornness, resisting. That's all superiority ego, right? The flight or freeze mode inside of the protective self is going to be the inferiority ego, right? That's where we're fleeing, trying to be less than human. This is when we freeze up, not knowing what to say, right? We get anxiety, confused, overthinking, worried, indecisiveness, trying to impress, right? Not feeling good enough or going into blame, all of that kind of stuff. That's all inferiority ego, right? Either one, it doesn't matter. We are limited and we have no power. Right? So instead, we want to go into thriving. Instead, we want to move our way up the vibrational ladder energetically so that we can, clear it through aim first. But then you want from the aligned self, we want to be, feel the difference from fear to faith, feel the difference from stubbornness to assertive, feel the difference of arrogance to self-confidence, feel the difference of pride to humility. Like I gave you a whole list of ways that this is what from the ego protective self, and this is from the aligned self. And we want to nurture those, right? You can, as you're going to move forward in this week, I'm going to have you really access higher levels of consciousness, staying there longer in your aligned self, milking those sessions longer. And so that you want to pick a few of these words that I'm showing you is the aligned self, and inside of the screen that you're going to see below, pick a few of those and then learn to feel those and stay with those. Put an alarm on for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, get yourself feeling what self-confidence would feel like in wherever you are, and then milk that for 5 minutes. Be more self-confident, not arrogance, self-confidence, right? Feel what it would feel like and notice the difference. Go back and forth between wow, I got impatient. Let me feel what patience really feels like, right? Not because you're waiting, but what needs to come from the aligned self. Oh, I was worried right there. Let me feel what trusting would feel like. You want to really be able to feel energetically what this feels like. So you start building muscles on creation. So all reactivity is the need for self-forgiveness. I'm going to say that again. Anytime you're reacting in any form, in either trying to be more than human or less than human, I want you to consider is automatically self-forgiveness needs to happen. Right? Because anywhere you're being triggered, that's where the work is for you to clear emotionally. That's where you have a misunderstanding, a misconception that you have not yet processed and forgiven yourself for, so that you can then move forward, right? This is how we slow down so that we speed up, right? Because guaranteed, it's always linked to your original core trauma. All right. So in doing that, what we want to do is when you clear these misunderstandings and misconceptions, right, you'll no longer feel any attachment. Whatever the attachment was, you're going to let go of, whatever the resistance, the judgment of the experience. Because most often, what will appear like a disagreement with other people is, in fact, within ourselves. So anywhere it looks like we're having a disagreement out there, the first thing we have to clean up is whatever our own limitation is, why there's a disagreement. There's something we don't believe we're capable in achieving in that co-creative experience. And we have to clean that up so we clear the judgments of our own limitations before we can create with clarity with another person and create win-wins. Okay, the truth is that this processing through AIM is always going to set you free. Okay, because what we really always need to be set free of is our own ignorance, misunderstandings, misconceptions, or AKA also known as our blind spots. That is really what's happening. So you're going to have to let something go. You've seen every training I give you, and I first give you the awareness and understanding, and then you know what's coming. You're going to have to let something go to have what you really want. You can't stay holding on to the patterns you've been running, right? And the feelings that you want to hold on to and achieve the results you really most want. It will defy law. You will not be fulfilled, right? You will not feel the way you want to feel. So you're going to have to let go, give up, or surrender the feeling. If you're used to liking to hold on to that separateness because you think being different is special, it's going to need to be let go of. You're going to have to process that, right? Any kind of significance or specialness. If for you, it's inside of, if you have a habit of operating out of either superiority ego or inferiority ego, you're going to need to clear those and choose what it would be from the aligned self. You're going to have to let go of thinking it's outside of you. Things are still happening to you, right? You're going to have to let go of people's judgments, realizing everyone has their own judgments coming based on their own limitations, their own trauma, their own perceptions, right? Stop trying to control other people, blaming others for your feelings when your feelings are actually a gift. They're only feedback to put yourself back into alignment. It lets you know when you are out of alignment, when what your thoughts are focusing on is different than the desires you truly hold or what it is you really want. Okay. By now you want to have a 5-second rule on that. It's like, okay, I'm get to have my own little pity party for 5 seconds. And now I'm going to process my emotions and get back into alignment, because all of your results are going to come when you're in alignment. Have you noticed? All the things you want come from that. So letting go, releasing the indication that there's a past. There is no past. Every time you relive the past, you're just bringing that into the now, reliving it. There is no past. So you really want to release the resistance of holding on to the past, letting go of being a victim. Okay, you have the power all along. The truth is, real power comes from the freedom of what you feel when you let go of the control, right? Reaching for the feelings of what you really want to feel intentionally, on purpose, and deliberately. That is how you're going to achieve everything you want. Really understanding that your feelings are a gift. So what do we do to do this? We have to apply allowance. So allowance is not passive. This is really huge. Most people have allowance as like, oh, I've got to be like somebody, like a doormat that just takes it. At least that's how I used to think of it until I understood it. From the aligned self, can you see allowance is not passive? It's not passive acceptance, but it's more recognizing there is a higher intention, there is a higher power, there's a higher source, love, a higher love that knows better. There's this energy that knows better, right? And knows what I'm really wanting. And me staying out here and being present to it with the moment by moment, really getting the gifts and the blessings, right? That nothing is happening by accident. Then it allows me to like feel connected and deliberately intend and create my results on purpose, rather than, right, like thinking I just have to take it. So allowance is not tolerating. It's active. It is really active. So allowance is not passive or inactive, but actively choosing. What we're doing when we're in allowance is we're choosing to flow with life by looking at all events as neutral, with innocence and curiosity, rather than as obstacles, right? We're just using them, or stopping points. We're using them as bridges or stepping stones, clearing misunderstandings, and keep moving forward and keep moving forward and keep moving forward, always evolving, expanding, growing, right? Because we're operating from higher levels of consciousness. So what you want to see inside of this, when you're operating in higher levels of consciousness, what it looks like is, from the protective self and from the original core trauma, from the ego, we feel less capable, and then we have those thoughts, and then we react, and then we beat the crap out of ourselves. From our higher level of consciousness, from the aligned self, we decide that we're capable, right? And then we feel for what it would feel like to already be capable, trusting ourselves, right? So we're feeling our way through an experience, a new circumstance, with a certain type of person that used to trigger us. We're trusting ourselves, feeling our way through it, right? Rather than going through the mind, we're feeling for the response that feels most in alignment. We're feeling for what feels most in alignment, allowing things, acknowledging, putting in where there's, to get more connection and more clarity on what we want, and then self-praising. Huge, 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 huge. Because in this all-inclusive universe, everything is energy. Everything is energy. So we're either emotionally resisting and reacting, or we are aligning and agreeing, right? Agreeing meaning allowing, finding where the win-win would be, aligning ourselves with it, and then creating more of that. You want to milk those higher levels of consciousness. Start seeing how long can you expand them out, right? So you get into alignment and you put yourself in alignment, and then you see how much more can you expand, much longer can you hold this expansion, how much more can you operate from that power, right? Acknowledging, completing conversations, really being able to deliberately choose your feeling states on purpose, and then holding those more often throughout, milking your days. I cannot wait to hear what opens up for you. This is how you become a force to be reckoned with. Okay,